I say, judicial coup, judicial tyranny, judicial activism. No matter how you slice it, it is abuse of power, and impeachment is a potential check there. The president was almost, I would say 3 for 4 at the Supreme Court this week in terms of pushing back on the judicial coups from these lower court judges against him. And as you may recall, Chief Justice Roberts, in response to calls for impeaching, and specifically Judge Boasberg, said, oh, that's not appropriate. You've got the appellate process, which is bunk in many respects, because the appellate process is one way to check judges who are outside the rule of law or out of control. Impeachment's another way, to put not too fine a point on it. But Chief Justice Roberts, to his credit, was participated, or at least helped, was part of the majority in many instances in curtailing a lot of the abuses targeting Trump this week. Let's go to the first tweet that references what happened. Help me remind me, because the number of cases are just astonishing. So the biggest ruling was this 5-4 decision out of the Supreme Court on the Boasberg issue. In a major setback to the left's abuse of the courts to undermine constitutional government, that's what's going on here, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled 5-4 that Chief Judge Boasberg, and he's chief of the District of Columbia courts here, the district court system, simply had no jurisdiction over the Alien Enemies Act case in which he ran roughshod over the constitutional powers of President Trump. And of course, I noted that Justice Amy Coney Barrett joined the leftist dissent in key measure. And then separately, there was this case where this other judge was trying to force the administration or President Trump to bring back this foreign national, illegal alien, who had been sent mistakenly, according to what the reports are and what the administration has disclosed, to El Salvador. He's El Salvadoran, by the way. He's an MS-13 gang member. And so there's no real question he could have been deported. There's a legal question as to whether he should have been deported to El Salvador given a prior court ruling. And some extremist judge was like trying to force Trump to engage in foreign policy moves to get him back. And Trump's like, who are you? You can't do this. You're just a regular judge. And unfortunately, the Supreme Court both gave the president an out and a loss in that regard. Let's go to tweet, what is the tweet number 11. Supreme Court ordered Trump to facilitate the return of an illegal alien MS-13 member from El Salvador, a further invitation for the courts to meddle in foreign policy. And indeed, the judge in the case immediately so this came out, what's today, the 11th? So this decision came out last night, or late yesterday, and the judge said, oh, we got the Supreme Court decision. You need to come in by 9:30 and tell me what you're doing to get this guy back, which is kind of completely at odds with what the court ruled, because the court said you got to be deferential to the president's foreign policy prerogatives. And so the judge has not been curtailed at all, practically speaking, as a result of the Supreme Court ruling. So do you think a district court judge should be mandating the president of the United States communicate in specific ways with a foreign government? I don't. And I can't believe the Supreme Court intended that to be the case here. I know what the ruling was, 9-0 essentially. But the consequence has got to be, when it becomes readily apparent, more apparent that these lower court judges are going to abuse this opportunity, seemingly given them by the Supreme Court, that's going to have to be curtailed. I had this tweet highlighting, deportations, tweet number 2. Deportations can soon begin again, thanks to Supreme Court ruling. But everyone who's subjected to deportation now is supposed to get some type of warning, and then they get to go to the court to, under this ruling, seek habeas relief, which essentially is the core power that a court has to kind of release someone from detention, or in this case, potential removal from the country. And I think that's inappropriate given the nature of the Alien Enemies Act. But Boasberg's efforts to hijack the entire process in one district court here in D.C. was thrown out. So we're all told to say, we're all been lectured about how wonderful a Judge Boasberg was. Well, he wasn't that wonderful in terms of his legal judgment because the Supreme Court essentially said he had no jurisdiction. He was handling a case he had no right to handle when it came to the Alien Enemies Act. So it's a big victory for the rule of law in that regard. It's not a perfect victory, but it's a significant victory because, as I've been telling you, that Trump is going to win some and lose some in these efforts to protect the country, reform the government, restore constitutional order. There's going to be resistance to that. You're going to have lawless resistance, and you're going to have arguably lawful resistance and checks under our Constitution from judicial rulings and perhaps Congress. Let me see what else I had here. Oh, and there was another great ruling. So there have been two judges who have ordered President Trump to actually go back and rehire people that he fired because they didn't have the right to keep on working because they were probationary. I mean, you've all worked in places. Some folks, they get hired and they usually are subject to being fired for virtually any reason the employee wants in the first few months, and that's true in large measure in the government. So there was a judge, I think, out on the West Coast, I forget which leftist, maybe he was, let's pretend he wasn't an Obama judge or a Clinton judge or a Biden judge, let's pretend he was a Trump judge. It doesn't matter. He attempted to hijack the presidency and ordered a rehiring of 16,000 workers. And as you can see in clip number 6, the Supreme Court said, nope. There were multiple agencies that were ordered by this judge to rehire. Essentially, Trump was told to rehire thousands of workers, and the Supreme Court put that on hold. So that's not going to happen. And there was another judge who made a similar ruling here on the East Coast, and he was curtailed as a result of the Supreme Court check there because the appellate court said, my understanding is based on what the Supreme Court said, you don't have to start hiring people again. I mean, you had district court judges telling the President of the United States he had to rehire immediately in an emergency fashion people he had just laid off and fired. I mean, that's not the relief that you typically get at the district court level. And I'm not a lawyer, so bear with me here. It's worth explaining it again. Let's say you're at a job and you get fired. And you think it was lawless. They think that there was a violation of law in getting you fired. The idea that you would go into court and get the court to get you to get hired immediately without any real input from the person you're suing, any consideration of evidence, any testimony, just this is unlawful and I'm going to be irreparably harmed, you would be left out of court. They'd say, I'm sorry, you can sue, but you're not immediately getting hired. You may never get hired at all. You may just get back pay, assuming you're right. Or after the entire case goes through, maybe you can get your job back. Or at best, the opportunity to apply for your job. So the idea that these employees unions, leftist nonprofit states go in and say, oh, there's an emergency because we're not getting money. Oh, there's an emergency because some of us lost a job. It may be an emergency for you, but it doesn't entitle you to immediate relief, or what they were getting, an immediate victory from anti-Trump judges. So when I say judicial coup, that's what I mean. Judges exercising powers of the legislature or the executive branch, powers not available to them, And thankfully, the Supreme Court is beginning to check some of this, not perfectly. They continue to think that they can interfere in key decisions that Congress and the Constitution give to the President of the United States. But these district court judges are out of control. And hopefully these latest series of Supreme Court rulings will begin to educate them that they can't continue to get away with this, and think, and they won't attempt to, they won't be mistaken in thinking that they're going to be supported at the appellate or Supreme Court level, and they'll just check themselves. But concurrently, Congress has got to take steps to curtail these judicial abuses. You know, I know there have been these issues of universal injunctions, which is a complicated issue I don't want to get into now, but essentially it's an injunction that, let's say you sue in the middle of Minnesota, and a judge there essentially takes hold of the entire federal government policy at issue, and that's not the appropriate way, many say, for courts to behave. I mean, in order to kind of shut down or take over or end an entire federal government program, that's beyond the power of a judge. The judge has the right to provide relief to one group of people, one person, the person suing or a group of people suing, but not everyone in every state possibly impacted. So there have been legislative efforts to change that. But impeachment should be on the table as well, and I think the Congress should educate Americans about impeachment and how it specifically was put in place to check judicial activism, because the founders were concerned the judiciary would do what the judiciary is doing now, which is exercising powers outside the Constitution in a way that leads to what many would call judicial tyranny. Judicial tyranny are judges acting as legislators and executive, basically usurping the power of the executive and legislative branches, the parts that guarantee a self-government. That's the challenge with this activism. It's, I say, judicial coup, judicial tyranny, judicial activism. No matter how you slice it, it is abuse of power, and impeachment is a potential check there. Is it politically feasible? I don't know. We certainly haven't had much leadership out of it on Congress. But don't let anyone tell you that it's not available, because it is. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.